I love the violin. I'll hear you play in a minute. I just have to get these medicine for them. You know, I can understand, but it's like okay, like I guess I'll play by myself. If I didn't have my violin from school, I would probably, I don't know what I would do. Don't even jinx me with that.
Hi, I'm Chuck Braverman. This is another episode of Westdoc Online. Today we're featuring one of the nominees for the Oscar in documentary short called The Last Repair Shop. And we'll get to that in just a minute, but I want to remind you we're brought to you in part by Real Screen. Real Screen Summit, which I just attended in New Orleans, is an annual event. And it's really a great place to go meet filmmakers and buyers and sellers and other people like you. Go to our website at westdoconline.com. Down at the bottom, there's a Real Screen icon. Click on it. It'll give you all the details on the next Real Screen Summit coming up. Today we have producer, director, talented filmmaker Ben Proudfoot on our show, who's one of the directors of The Last Repair Shop. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Hi, Chuck. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I always ask, where are you speaking from physically? What city are you?
I'm in my office in sunny Southern California in Los Feliz. It's Walt Disney's original office building where our business, Breakwater Studios, is located.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. That's amazing that the building is even still there.
It's still here, barely, but it is still here. 100 years ago.
And I understand from your bio that you're actually Canadian from Saskatchewan?
Nova Scotia.
Oh, from Nova
Yeah,
Scotia?
yeah. I'm born and raised in Nova Scotia.
And how did you end up down in the lower 48?
Well, that's a good story. So I got into sleight of hand magic as a teenager, card tricks and coin tricks and that kind of thing. And I had won the Canadian Championship for youth close-up magic. And there I met this guy named Jason Latimer, who was the world champion of magic at the time. And he said, hey, if you want to really pursue sleight of hand magic, you've got to come to Los Angeles. I had never been. And join the Magic Castle Junior program, which kind of sounded like this, amazing place. And so I sort of put my mind to basically building a business doing magic shows as a teenager in order to earn enough money to come to Los Angeles and attend the Magic Castle Junior program meetings. And that's what first brought me to LA and was my entree into show business. And then later I switched to filmmaking.
And how was that experience at the Magic Castle?
It was, honestly, I think it was a great way to shape my creativity as a person, as a teenager, in a very formative time. Magic is a wonderful and it can be a very sort of free and open creative medium because you start with the audience's experience, right? What do they think, feel, remember? And then you work backwards from that, trying to figure out how to give them that experience or that impression, which is a really interesting way to sort of think about all art making. And I had some great mentors that taught me that world, and it also was the way that I started learning about how to run a business, how to make money, and I started that early on. 14, 15 years old, doing kids' birthday parties and those have been two very important parts of my life, the business side and the creative side.
Do you mind if I ask how old you are now?
I'm 33 today.
Today?
Not this day, but
oh.
It's not my birthday, but yeah, today I am 33 years old.
So you ended up in LA, and I know from also reading your bio that you went to a nice little university called the University of Southern California, which happens to be the same university that I went to in the same cinema department that I attended just a couple of years before you. And
right on.
So fight on, right?
He says reluctantly.
And the experience at SC?
Yeah, I mean, so I never got into the production program, hard as I tried. So I came actually undeclared to the University of Southern California because I didn't get into the film school. And then I weaseled into the what's called the Critical Studies program, the film theory program, and was just continually rejected from the production program. And that's where I met many people who I still work with every day to this day, 12 years after graduating. So that was an essential experience for me. And actually, the film theory program was better than the production program in many ways because I got to watch a lot of great movies from 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s that really informed my filmmaking. I think if I was so busy making, or trying to make films in class, I would never have seen many of these films, and I wouldn't have been nearly as informed of a filmmaker.
So your film is about a warehouse in downtown Los Angeles. You want to tell us what's in that warehouse and how you found it, and a little bit about the film?
Yeah. So just east, about 10 minutes east on the 10 from USC, is a warehouse south of downtown. It's a windowless facilities, LAUSD facilities workshop where all of the musical instruments in the Los Angeles Unified School District, which educates over 500,000 students every day in LA, all of their musical instruments, which now total more than 130,000, if one breaks, or if 5,000 break, they all funnel towards this one warehouse, and a group of 12 master technicians repair these musical instruments before they get sent back to the kids. And that's what our film's about.
And how was this through Chris that you found it, your co-conspirator in this film?
No, actually, funny enough, it came through our producer, Jeremy Lambert, who was running production here at Breakwater at the time. And he found this article. His brother is a luthier, builds guitars. And I think this article, the headline, caught his eye. It was an old article, maybe 10 years old, about how there was a backlog of instruments at the shop at the time. It was underfunded, or I can't remember the exact reason. And but what we were more interested in was that it was one of the last shops in the country of its kind. So there's many repair shops, but almost no school districts publicly fund free and freely repaired instruments. And I was both sort of disappointed that it was one of the last in the country, but also proud that it was in LA. And, I'm from Nova Scotia, but I've lived here for 15 years. And, for a transplant like me, you have these critical moments when you start feeling like this place is home. And that was one of them. I said, that's our city has this awesome place. And I was making a film with Chris about his grandfather, called A Concerto as a Conversation. And I came to him and said, you went to LAUSD, have you ever heard of this shop? And he said, no. What is, I played on those pianos. I played on those saxophones. And so he got really intrigued and engaged immediately. And we started talking about, what would a film look like? And it just is rich, right? It's visual. Obviously, it's a great oral storytelling opportunity, not only with sort of the technical stuff of how you put together all these instruments, but the music itself. And Chris said immediately, we've got to interview the kids. We've got to find some kids and understand how much those instruments mean to them, because I know how much a musical instrument can mean to a young person, because the piano meant so much to him. And that we were off and running, and we spent the next 4 years making the movie.
Let's take a look at the trailer.
I love the violin.
I think a lot of people see a broken thing and they just think it's broken. It could be anything. Maybe it's public schools.
Or maybe it's the United States or any other part of the world.
Maybe it's just that $20 fiddle found how to swap me.
But when we see a broken thing, we think, oh, with a little something here, a little something there, we can fix the part that's broken and make things whole again.
It's difficult work.
But no matter what,
You do whatever it takes because
Fixing stuff is one of the best things that humans do.
that's why this is not just a musical instrument repair shop. When an instrument breaks, there's a student without an instrument. No, not in our city.
Even if they don't know me,
we know it could change their whole life.
So you discover this place, you tell your filmmaking partner at the time, Chris Bowers, who's a very talented musician,
Yes.
who's did Green Book and the film that you were working on.
A concerto is a conversation.
A concerto is a conversation with him, basically talking to his grandfather.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested seeing, Searchlight pictures on there and LA Times and your company and Chris involved. What was the sort of flow of, did you guys say, well, let's just go make this film and you started on your own, or did you go to Searchlight or LA Times, or what was the flow there?
So we made The Last Repair Shop independently. Chris and I funded it ourselves through our companies. It wasn't until late in the process that we partnered with a couple of very generous executive producers who helped us finish it. Jane Solomon, Peter Rotter, Michael Risley, sort of added to our war chest to get the thing done. And then when we premiered the film at Telluride without any distribution, and that's when Searchlight saw it. David Greenbaum from Searchlight saw the film. His mom saw the film. He fell in love with it, and I had met him a couple years prior, and it was obviously also an LA story, so the LA Times made sense. And something that's really important to Chris and I was that the film be available on YouTube for free in perpetuity.
Which it is now. So if you want to see the film, just
Yep.
go to YouTube and put in The Last Repair Shop.
See it.
No cost, no charge. It's right there, and
Correct.
it's a wonderful film to take a look at. And as we speak on this date, the Academy vote, this film is nominated for an Academy Award in the documentary shorts. And as we speak here on February the 28th, we don't know the results of this, which we'll find out on March the 10th. And but it's a very, very strong film. And to get to this place, do you remember how many shorts there were submitted this year?
Over
You know
100.
how many? Yeah, every year.
Yeah.
So just as a point of reference, I am a product of LA City Schools from the very beginning. Melrose Grammar School, John Burroughs Junior High
That's
School,
where Chris
Fairfax.
went. Chris went to John Burroughs Middle School.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, how do you like that? Them apples. That's amazing. John Burroughs. Junior high was rough, and high school was rough. And my younger son went to Hamilton, which I noticed is one of
Yeah,
the schools
that's
that
right.
was participating in the concert. But he went there because of music, because Hamilton was and is a music magnet
Yes.
school. And so my younger son, Max Braverman, and was in Hamilton for a while until he felt like he had absorbed everything that he could. Can you tell me a little bit about the logistics of the shoot? How many days were you there?
Yeah.
How do you co-direct with anybody?
Yeah, so sometimes I'm driving the car, sometimes he's driving the car, sometimes we've both got a hand on the wheel. The first thing that we shot was the interviews of all 4 craftspeople. I did those. That took, I think, 3 or 4 days. Then COVID hit and nothing was shot for over a year because the shop was closed to the outside world. Then Chris handled the kids' interviews, all those kids. We interviewed like 10 or 12. Only 4 interviews are in the film. And you're sort of sitting off to the side and whispering and sort of informing the questions. How about this? How about that? And then the B-roll and all sort of the other visual sequences we shot, it was much easier to both be on set and present. So I remember like the opening shot of the movie where you're sort of inside of this cavernous violin and the little dentist's mirror comes in. Chris is there and he takes out his phone. He starts playing, Saint-Saëns Aquarium and the sort of mysterious music. And I say, maybe we need some haze in here, and we just sort of pile and iterate on top of each other. Probably the best example of our collaboration and just something that like neither of us could do individually, but that we did together is the end credit sequence. Chris wrote that piece of music, and there was just, a lot of, it was an incredible rally between the two of us to figure out how that music, which was not set in stone, it was changing all the time based on what our best sort of story and visual ideas were. And so we'd say, talking about it, actually, the more sort of call and responses we have in the music, the more that sort of lends itself to visual cutting or big sweeping movements around the orchestra room. That probably presents the sort of best example of our co-directing is in the last 5 minutes of the movie.
And do you ever come to a point with your co-director where you say, I want to go left, and he says right, or something like that, and you disagree? And
honestly, we have a good marriage. I think there's certain areas that he defers to me on and certain areas I defer to him on. And if we disagree in one of those areas, we just sort of implicitly know, that the other person probably has a better sense of where to go in this context, right? Like, I didn't want to have kids in the movie initially. I thought, no, that's the easy, low-hanging fruit. We don't have to. It's just, you think you need the cute kids, but you don't, right? It's all about the repair people. And he was adamant. He says, no, trust me. I was one of those kids. We need to see that, or else the work of the repair people doesn't mean anything because, we need to know how it affects them. And I said, okay, I trusted him. And he was right.
When I was 3 years old, my dad taught me how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on the piano. I actually vividly remember that. I've been playing the piano for like 9 years now. I just have a connection with it, I'm getting emotional. I've just been playing for a while, playing for a long time. Mental health is something that's like very hard to manage sometimes, especially if like everything that's going on in your life, like school and thinking of what you want to be. It's very stressful sometimes.
The stories that you pulled out of the adults were emotional, but the stories with the kids really got you. But, the first story, you profile these 4 people that work in there. And the first story is the guy who was gay and coming out in the 90s, I guess, or something like that, or early 90s. Did you have conversations about, do we want to open with this story, and will that put some people off and some, or what was that conversation?
We didn't have that exact conversation, but we definitely talked about what was the best order. What order was best. I would hope now in 2024 that a story about somebody coming out of the closet would not turn too many people off, but I suppose there are some corners of the country where that might be the case, but I'm not sure if we made the movie for them. The order was more a question of sort of like emotional highs and lows. Dwayne's story in particular is rather light and lighthearted, and so our editor, Nick Wright, who deserves a lot of credit in terms of how the movie came together and the structure of it, and worked on the movie for many years, he was really the one who was, at the keyboard trying to figure out, should Dwayne come first and kind of lift up that, sort of make it really exciting and funny right at the top, or should we save that as sort of a palate cleanser before Steve, who obviously needed to end it, because that's sort of the surprise, is, your sort of host actually has a story himself. So we sort of moved around these building blocks until it felt right. And Dana so eloquently kind of set up the metaphor, the sort of primary metaphor of the movie about, broken instruments and broken people, and that both can be repaired, that we thought that was a great way to open it. We thought Dwayne was a great sort of lighthearted way to lead into Steve's story, which is so sort of important and poignant and heavy at times.
And how did you work with your editor? I loved the, I don't know what you would call it, the overlapping of the audio and video cutting.
Yeah, the pre-lap audio.
Pre-lap audio.
Yeah.
That's a good description.
Nick, so Nick and I have known each other and worked together for many years. And, to be honest, huge volumes of time of Nick alone with this footage, crafting so many of the brilliant moments in this movie. And, as a filmmaking team, we're all very informed by the internet. Much more than the movie theater or television. Our generation, we have been making movies for YouTube and Vimeo. And so a lot of that pre-lap style and even, jump cuts and the way we frame interviews are really from our training how to capture an audience online who are watching these films on their phone. And I think you can probably see that influence in The Last Repair Shop.
Well, I hope you don't watch this film on your phone.
I hope so. For our sound, at least for our supervising sound editor's sake, at least headphones.
What are you working on now in the future? What are we going to see from you?
Gosh. Well, I love the short documentary. I think it's one of the, if not the best form of cinema there is. I think it can make an impact that is broader even than feature films because of the distribution tool of the internet, and because since there's no real industry around it, there are different questions you ask yourself before you make one. So I'm in production and post-production and development on a whole slew of short documentaries, working on one about a cinematographer from Ghana with Moses Bwayo, who's nominated this year for Bobby Wine, the People's President, and he's in his 90s, and he followed the story of Kwame Nkrumah, who is one of the founders of democracy in the continent of Africa, and had a big influence on the decolonization of the African continent. Working on that, working on a story with Clarence Jones, who was Martin Luther King's lawyer, and wrote the first 7 paragraphs of the "I Have a Dream" speech. Number of different exciting projects on the go. So I'm excited to bring those to the world sometime soon.
Well, I must say you and Chris really raised the bar for the documentary short category, because I think most people, when they think of doc shorts, they think of, a crew of 1 to 3 people going out in a budget of $100, and your film is certainly incredibly professional looking, sounding, feeling, working on an emotional level and everything else. It really works, and
Thank you.
And I'm very happy for you, although I would normally say, being nominated for an Oscar is life-changing, but in your case, not that much, because you've already got an Oscar somewhere back there on the shelf.
Yeah, well, as you know, I haven't been able to see the film that you were nominated for. I'd love to be able to watch that, but at least for us, it's so much of it. Obviously, it's not best director, right? It's best film. And so for us, it's about who the film represents, and in this case, it's the repair people and the students. And so it has been life-changing for them. and that's pretty cool. We're pretty stoked about that.
And it's exceptional. It's extraordinary that our city, which I can still claim LA as my city, our city has this amazing warehouse where they fix these instruments for our kids that are going to school. It's so important that they have a music background, especially today when some politicians want to cut music and arts programs, and I'm proud of the city for having this, and I hope they keep it going forever.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to contribute, we just launched a $15 million capital campaign to support the repair shop. So you can go to thelastrepairshop.com. Even $1 or $5, you can make a donation.
Thanks for being a guest on Westdoc.
Thank you for having me.